and give a sense we can replace or supplement charcoal that we have used all the time. And that gave birth to the National LPG program. And I remember beginning when we started, people were afraid. Some even feature writers we are going to put bombs in people's homes. Yes, and then we said we train more people. So what started first was the cylinder recirculating program. So I keep telling NPA people, it's not new. It was started long ago. So when we are coming to understand, oh, we are reintroducing, that's what we are starting. And then later on, with the cylinders, so you bring your nice cylinder, you go there, somebody brought, excuse me, very dirty cylinder. Total will say, basin and all those kind of things. I said, this is not mine. So then people were prepared to buy their own. They see, and then it ended. Now we got to introduce the gas. We started opening, what do you call it? We started producing our own gas from Atuabo. And the gas we have been producing or exporting have been butane. Butane had got a stronger scent. And then, but from the red that the Atuabo one, the Ghana gas one was largely propane. So we advised at that time, head of the policy and planning, doing the forecast, hey, let's now have to idealize our gas. Otherwise, it's going to be bombs in people's homes. And then we had the first one at the atomic, and then the other somewhere people's homes, and then I remember the tanker driver started complaining, said, we don't hear the scent, and we did something. So it's good what the structures, and then interesting, at the same time, the government now proposed the Vision 2020. That Energy Commission said, why don't you look at the energy requirements of Vision 2020? And that gave birth to the Strategic National Energy Plan. So it said that by 2020, we meet the power needs of our industry in every sector of the economy. And over in there, we made a lot of recommendations. Now look back, almost all the recommendations we made the same, that was what NP has followed. So if you look at the petroleum downstream and that of the power downstream, like the distribution and retailing, I would say, NPA, you have done very well. Clap for yourself. Now, no more queues. Do you see? And then they have been regulated very well. You see, those times to adulteration of fuels. Now you had to see. And just recently was the magnesium issue. And I remember it also affected my engine because I like to buy from the cheaper side. And I said, no more. Yeah. So you done very well. Do you see and all that? But then now we also have another challenge we're going to face is the energy transition. Now a lot of companies are drilling started, particularly in African countries. We see, it's a form for us also for the period for us also to enjoy. He said, now move away to solar, move away to biogas. Can you do that to run an industry? And mind you, do you see, energy is what our ability to do work, and work is what wealth, prosperity. So you want your country to run, prosper like them, it's energy. So what do we do? So these are some of the things we are going to discuss during the panel discussion. Yeah, fine. And then another thing too, do you see? So now you see higher quality of fuels. Now we have what? Early 2020s, early 2000s, we have barely about 5 local companies involved in the distribution sector. Now about 200, and I tell you that's the retail branches, I'm told, it's about 1,000, almost 2,000, right? Which means it's a lot of progress. And if I look at it from looking at West Africa and Ghana, Ghana has done very well. No wonder they are coming to copy us. So let's keep that standards, the quality performance up. So please, politicians, you are in here, no interference, no negative interference. Allow them to do their work, fine. So now, NPA also looking at other regulation interventions, including the deregulation of the industry to have significant growth. And the engagement, the level of engagement they are doing with the stakeholders, also consistently reviewing the existing regulation and policy to align with the shift towards alternative energy sources. We're talking about promotion. Now we're talking about the compressed natural gas. You see, that's very important and very important. Now my challenge is the compressed natural gas. There's a colleague from Nigeria, right? He's talking about the West Africa looking at harmonizing our regulations and all those kind of things. When we started the natural gas project, West African gas pipeline project, you see, look at the reserve in Nigeria, the largest in Africa. So it's, hey, let's have a pipeline that will take the gas from Nigeria to far away Senegal. Do you see? Yes. That some countries started to be suspicious, so are you sure, can we trust our colleagues and all those kind of things? This is the government, we have the confidence. We are trying to put some safety guards to reduce the risk. And unfortunately, the change in government, and then the policy, the risk activity changed, and then Chevron, the chief investor in the consortium, changed the whole policy. You see, and what happened? A pipeline that's supposed to produce to carry 400 million cubic of gas by now is just carrying 100. So a lot of losses. Do you see? If you are going to do compress natural gas, you have the natural gas that you compress and put to vehicles. Maybe starting with the big trucks. And now a gas from that side, how am I call it? All will depend on the price of the gas. If they are done, oh yes, they have done that. If they have been successful, we're talking about gas no more than $4 per unit, which means we can use for producing fertilizers. Do you see? So many things. No loss. But you're going to have it about $8 to $12 per unit. No way. Very difficult. Unless the government intervenes. Do you see? And all those things. So, price of issue was very, very important. Fine. So, and now there's an intervention with the goal for oil. Yes, which really, like laboratory over here, have been somehow successful, but we don't know. Well, let's keep seeing. Fine. So now going to my panelists. That's these things we are going to discuss and see how best we can move forward as a country. So you're going to have Madam Ivy Apia-Usu, Board Chair and Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors and CEO of Saros Oil Services. Are you here? Please come and have a seat. Women first, so you can choose. Where do I want to sit? Fine. Then, my own Dr. Reverson Opon, former of Ghana Gas and now CEO of Association Oil Marketing Company. We thank God for elevation. Clap for you. I'm clapping for you. The next is our own Dr. Sheila Ado. Sheila, how are you? A very wonderful presentation this morning. If you were doing your PhD or so-and-so postdoc, I'll give you 100% credit. Performance. Rate you. Then, Gershon Kluche, Consultant and Tanker Owners Union. Right. Now, the MPS is trying to now come to your aid. So your drivers will not complain much. We thank God. Yes. Do you have contributors? Are they supposed to be here too? No, we are fine. So, thank you very much. So, audience, your panel team, and I'm here. Hello? Yeah, this one. Sorry. Oh. I have to chew Baba small. Don't worry. So, let me get the names first. Ivy. Oh, no. I have to go to Sheila first because you are in the industry. So, now, what? Oh, okay, fine. Yeah. Thank you very much. So, Sheila, this question is for you.
Yes, Doc.
So, what have been the other gains so far? Other gains after implementing all that?
Okay. So I suppose you mean in terms of deregulation,
yes.
What have been our success story
yeah.
so far? So remember we mentioned that we had three-pronged approach to deregulation. Infrastructure, supply, price deregulation. In my opinion, price deregulation has given us the biggest success and also the biggest challenge. It was easy to implement, opening up infrastructure supply, easy to implement, opening up product supply. But once you start talking about pricing and hitting the bottom line of businesses, it becomes a very complex issue. So we created a lot of keen competition. We created a lot of recalcitrant service providers, that's the challenge. But also some of the key gains were we were able to successfully eliminate subsidies. We had huge debt on the books of government where we were subsidizing products that we didn't have to subsidize, using diesel to cross-subsidize petrol, yet the consumers of petrol were people who could actually pay for the product. We were cross-subsidizing LPG, subsidizing premix and so on and so forth. And government couldn't have enough funds to pay for the subsidy. So the biggest success we've had is in price deregulation so far. But again, it's been our biggest challenge.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, just to again, another thing is the pricing. Like, for example, LPG. Their whole idea, it was well subsidized also, so that those in the poor homes, middle to low income, can also patronize it. Now we remove all the subsidies, and now you are going back to charcoal. And I heard our CEO saying what? They speak on the behalf of the minister, saying what? We want to achieve 40% or 50% penetration. They say, is it really achievable if they are all going back to the charcoal?
Okay, so yes, we accept that prices of LPG are high, especially the tax component on it. And so there's definitely some paper to government and some conversations with government to see how we can try and rationalize the taxes on LPG. Mm-hmm. But the objective is more of an environmental focus and also more of safety for the consumers. Yes, yes, we are looking at a balance in terms of the price. That is why the strategy for implementing cylinder recirculation model is completely different from what everybody else is having. So we look at the price buildup of LPG. If due to government challenges with the IMF and all of that, we're unable to get them to successfully take off LPG taxes or to consider it for now, we try to look at how we can improve upon the efficiency of the LPG price buildup. And so if you look at the PBU, there's a supplier's parts of the price, which is from imports, that trickles down to the ex-pump. Now, we have only about 3 or 4 active LPG importers in the country. That doesn't give us benefits in terms of economies of scale, because every importer needs to go and negotiate their premiums individually with the suppliers, okay? So we saw premiums as high as about $150 per metric ton on top of LPG price that's imported, before the BDC that's imported would apply their own premium to arrive at the ex-refinery price. So NPA decided to do something. We decided to tender in bulk the volume of LPG that is imported in the country. So we pulled together the needs of all the 3 or 4 regular importing LPG BDCs, and we decided to tender as one. So instead of you going to import, let's say, 1,000 metric tons, 2,000 metric tons, on a quarterly basis, we tender about 22,000 metric tons. It gives us 2 advantages. Number one, we can negotiate better the premium with the supplier, and then also we can plan the quantity of imports that comes into the country and also be able to help trickle down the gains on the price on the final consumer. So NPA on its own, whilst we're negotiating to see what can be done about taxes, this is what we did. And we've had significant successes. Instead of premiums, delivery premiums at about $150 per metric ton, the last tender saw about $20 to $30 per metric ton in terms of the premium. That's a huge gain that we're looking to make sure it trickles down to the price. Now, there's also a cost element to CRM. I'm not going to lie about it. We have a full cost recovery principle in pricing. CRM requires 2 additional service providers, bottling plants, and then cylinder exchange points. Now, and also maybe cylinder manufacturers. We're asking consumers not to own cylinders. It means that somebody must bear the cost of cylinders, one. And also somebody must pay for the cost of running the bottling plant. So there's an $80 per metric ton cost that has been added on top of the price of LPG so that we can pay for CRM. But in all, if you pull the $80 and pull whatever gains we're getting in terms of the premium, the lower premiums now, it is not as high as prices would have been if individual BDCs, the 4 individual BDCs, went to the market to import. So these are the strategies we're using to try and, get LPG competitively to the consumer.
Okay, but now they'll cut more trees, including the tree behind my house. Okay, Riverson, you are the house sports chair for the, the chamber of traders. I would say traders. So, what do you see as the challenge with the activity, or the challenges to the activities, or the regulation aspect of MP, or the country that you're having now?
Yeah, okay, so thank you so much, Doc. It's good to see you always. Such a wonderful introduction, as always. And I'm very happy I cannot see anybody down there because of the lighting, so I can speak my mind.
Yeah, good. No arrest.
So no arrest, yeah. So, and again, the caveat you gave me was very fantastic. So I speak on behalf of my members, which are today more than 240 members that's in my portfolio. And that alone tells you that that's a big struggle, where a lot of individual interest on the game, on the table to play. And I always say this, I mean, from my petroleum economics and contract background, that petroleum policy will always be the contractor of the road, whereas regulation will be the portfolio to put the road signs on the road. But what will keep and maintain the road, for me, is stakeholder engagement. Think about it. The policy that you are setting is constructing the road, and then the regulation is just telling you, you can drive at 50 here, you can drive at 60, you can drive at 80 here. And that comes with a policeman who stands behind the 50 road sign, and if you go 80, arrest you and then fines you, right? And then due to stakeholder engagement, we can maintain the road. Having said that, yes, we've come out with a report that actually showed the issues that we have with our regulators today. I mean, this tells you that regulation is very important, but the number one key challenge that I put down here is the multiple regulatory requirements that we have in the downstream now. We have about 7 regulators that we deal with. Of course, MPA is the mother of it. And that being said, there are still ambiguous and inconsistent of duties. As it stands today, one of the challenges that I face, and my members will tell you, is who is in charge of the pumps in the systems in the filling station. Is it GSA or is it MPA? Because MPA has a standard, GSA has a different standard, and these are all regulations. So MPA will say go 50 here, GSA will say go 60 here. MPA comes, you're going 60, it's a crime. GSA comes, you're going 50, it's a crime. And also another thing that identified with my coming on board and meeting my members was the relationship that they have with the regulators. And actually, this is one of the complaints I receive from every single oil marketing company that I visited, okay? And they complain that they don't have good relationship with the other regulators. It's not just MPA here, okay? So now I'm not calling the shots. And then also, one thing we also realized is the operational delays due to some activities that is done by regulators. So one of the complaints that I have was obtaining outlets on authority permits can take time. They normally will actually request to the regulators asking for these permits, and it will take a long time. And also complaints on the fuel marking scheme. It will surprise you to also know that even though we're talking about pump price going up, I mean, look at where we've moved to today. Just last year, we moved from 7 cedis or so per liter at the station. Today, you're talking about 13, right?
Right.
Good. 15.
15.
So actually, the pump price is chasing the dollar rate. Exactly. So, but you'd be surprised, Doc, to understand that the rate at which the pump price is increasing is directly opposite the margin of my members. And I repeat this. The fuel price, the pump price increase is directly opposite the margin of my members. Because it's the regulated market. The cheaper your fuel, the more you can sell, right? So my members now, the oil marketing companies need to reduce their margin, whereas other components are standardized. So that's one thing that I also have to also push and probably have a very tough time, because now we can't go back to regulation. You can't say, please give me a minimum, what do you call it, market. Because now when you're talking about the price, we came up with the floor price, which now tells the oil marketing companies the minimum price that they can sell. All right. I know some of my members were also pushing for a minimum component that will be their margin. But I knew that once MPA does that, they need to go back to Parliament to ask for regulation. Okay? So now you ask yourself, are we really deregulated? You know, that's a very big question that you can ask yourself, because there are still some components that are regulated. You mentioned some of them, you know? And then excessive sanctions and fees. I don't know if the BDCs have that, but then OMCs have that a lot. So they'll come to your station, they say that your fuel did not meet the requirement in terms of the standards of the market, you know, and then you are fined. The tracks are tracked. There are ATGs. So if there are issues with more practices, I believe the regulators should be able to see. Because there are genuine cases where my members can prove to a very reasonable doubt that they didn't have anything to do with it. Another complaint is that they have some of their portal being closed without any announcement. And to get the portal to come back on track is not easy. So all in all, again, these are comments that I've received from the oil marketing companies that I've visited so far, and those who have also come to me. But one thing that will help us, I mean, remarkably, as an industry, we are growing. Demand for energy is growing globally. Globally because of population growth. We should expect more than 5 billion people on this planet by 2050. Africa, we're talking about energy security. We're not talking about energy sustainability. And sometimes, even though I'm a petroleum engineer, I find it very weird when I see energy sustainability equated to carbon emissions or renewables. The word sustainability simply means that's something I can have today and I can have tomorrow. Let's not change the narrative. Yeah. You understand? So we are building an industry which demand is increasing because of population, one, that we are not producing for ourselves. So we actually depend on imports. And then we have all these global things coming in, things that you don't control. Which African institute contributes to the determination of Platts price? Tell me. No, we don't determine that. Which African institute contributes to the determination of August or even WTI and all of them? You sell crude oil at $80 maximum and you buy products back $400,000 and the rest. And I'm very happy with whatever happened in the morning. The regulation is good, but let's have regulation that will be sustainable. And now this sustainable is not the environmental sustainable. Something that we can have today and can leave a legacy back for our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will come to that one. And when it comes to the energy transition and net zero, we'll come to that. But for now, Ivy, a certain blame has been put on your group. Where do they go and hide and then trade the thing? Is that behind their kitchen or their one?
Well, thank you for that. I'll just touch on, something that Riverton mentioned. Riverton said, the rate at which the palm prices are going up is nowhere near the rate at which their margins are going up. In fact, their margins are actually going down. I think your members are lucky because for me, my sector is minus. So at least let's take when yours going down. And that's just by the way. And, I think, when I was looking at this, anytime we talk of regulation, there's always an overlap with policy. But policy, basically, as we know, is basically the guidelines that help with decision-making and the framework. And regulation is basically the rules and the requirements that are needed to enforce policy. So I'm going to focus more on the regulation bit, though it's very intertwined. Anyone who's ever heard me speak, or even at MPA, one of the things that I'm very vocal about is the fact that we're not regulating hard enough when it comes to the area of enforcement. Quite frankly, we've been talking about, and I know you mentioned, Riverson, that there are about 240 or so players in your sector. In mine, at the BDC level, we're about, let's say, 40 odd plus, depending on which day you go on the website. And you would also see that Ghana is just a 34 million population. Do we need that many players? Obviously, the answer should be no. This morning, I was very happy when, I believe it was the CEO for NPA, mentioned that, we look at the best practices, of other nations as well, and we take that on board, we learn from that. If there was question and answer time, I would also have asked that for those particular nations, what is the population count versus the number of players? Because all that would also go towards making, and Sheila, your point about pricing and how that's been successful but a challenge. Anything is a challenge when it's open to competition, but the competition is not economically viable. At the end of the day, when business to make money, of course, there's the social aspect of it. So it's not all completely about just making money. But if you have so many players who now just end up getting to a form of desperation to be able to sustain their businesses, then you're going to have all sorts of things. So for me, one of the things I always say, until we get a grip on the number of players we have in this sector, we will have these discussions all the time. If you look at the OMC sector, you can have just about, I would like to believe that just about 20% contributing to 80% of the OMC space. It's the same in the BDC space. Is it time for consolidation? That's always a tricky thing to see. But I always say that, look, as a regulator, there are certain things that can help you, you can hide behind certain things that are lawful, things that are legal. So, for example, and this is something I've taken up with the regulator before, for example, you have your own licensing policies. You have the rules and requirements to be followed. There's somebody who has gone foul of that. What stops the regulator from basically saying that, well, until you make good on what you need to make good on, you're not going to be allowed to import? That doesn't happen. And unfortunately, people who may not necessarily have paid their license fees are given license to import. These are basic low-hanging fruit that I believe the regulator can look at. But not to say that the regulator hasn't done well. I think MP has done a brilliant job, especially when it comes to the area of quality standards. That I would say MPA has been fantastic with that. The pricing, I think maybe we'll come back to that, because in a fully priced, deregulated market, I personally have huge challenges why the regulator should then decide that there has to be floor pricing. I know it's tricky, right? Because even amongst our members, people sometimes, we kind of are a little bit in conflict with what we want, what we don't want. But at the end of the day, it's the regulator. And so depending on what the act says, depending on what the rationale was for going into price deregulation, then you can make a decision and say that, you know what, this isn't a place that we're going to, play in because it takes us backwards. And even if we are, then let's consider the full complement of what makes a floor price. And that's something that we need to look at because there's even purchase premium isn't part of that on the BDC side. And so now people are undercutting the floor price that has been set, which doesn't even include purchase premiums and is all chaos out there in the market. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now, Mr. Kluche, there are some who are blaming your tankers, your group, that they have been doing something to the oil, adulteration. How do you check them? Do you educate them? How are the challenges? What are they saying? Last time I heard on the air, they were complaining about their monies, their what and what and what. So let us know whether you are lashing them or you are not lashing them.
Thank you very much, moderator. The transportation sector, I can say that the regulatory intervention has significantly impacted the sector and has corrected some of the distortions that used to be in the market as far as the transportation sector is concerned. And this has reflected in increasing credibility in the area of quantity of products delivered, quality, and so on and so forth. And the regulator has leveraged technology significantly in this area. The implementation of the ERDMS system and also the implementation of the tracking system, the vehicle tracking system, the electronic tank gauging system, all these technologies that the regulator leveraged have actually succeeded to a large extent in sanitizing the industry, ensuring transparency in the transportation and delivery of products. There were other regulatory interventions like the use of fuel marking, the fuel marking system, the other interventions such as there's this one very important intervention in the area of, I think this is for the delivery at the depots, where BOST implemented the use of flow meters, the flow metering system, to ensure transparency in the discharge, and also the implementation of the temperature compensation scheme. All these interventions are very important regulatory interventions that have helped to restore credibility in the transportation of products. So one can say that a lot of success have been chalked in that area. And, but nevertheless, there are still challenges to be confronted in the area of distribution to ensure that the remnants of market failure are dealt with and are dealt with decisively to engender transparency, to, as it were, to improve the credibility of the industry, and then to sort of clean the image of that sector of the industry, because that sector of the industry has had an image which is linked to product adulteration, is linked to short deliveries, and so on and so forth. But all these regulatory interventions have significantly cleaned that image, and I think that we can only improve on that through more interventions, more market intelligence gathering and analysis, and so on and so forth going forward. So that is what I think that the authorities need to do in order to improve the process of regulation and regulatory interventions and how it contributes to the sanitizing the industry and ensuring credibility and transparency in fuel transportation and delivery. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a challenge here. So now adulteration. Is it coming from, if not coming from your side, so I want to know from Sheila. So if the tankers come and they are delivering the oil at that particular station, do they check that quality coming from the tank? Does that come from the tank, or you wait the tanks leave, and later on your team goes there and say, hey, you have put some kinky liquid inside the oil? Let us
Okay,
know.
Doc. So we regulate with standards. We don't regulate in vacuum. Before I respond, I just wanted to quickly touch on the challenges that my three my colleagues have raised. Yes.
Yeah.
There is no regulation without an issue. There's always a phased approach to regulation. Our industry has matured to the extent where we've deregulated and we have a lot of private sector players. We are pushing towards the stage of efficiency, and efficiency with the law, efficiency with application of our own guidelines, efficiency even with the use of technology. Okay, so that is the stage we are at now. There are instances where recalcitrant service providers have been cut off from the ERDMS system, but you wouldn't know because nobody would announce to you to tell you that this person has been cut off. Like Riverson said, you suddenly go and you realize that you've been suspended from operating. It is because you have been involved in some recalcitrant operations. You are aware of that recalcitrant operation, and so your operation is suspended until you resolve that issue, whether it is regulatory, operational, or technical issue. And so, yes, in any environment where the regulator is a friend to the players, then the regulator isn't working. So I accept that, yes, there'll be challenges. These are challenges that we're dealing with within the scope of efficiency. In terms of pricing and margin, Ivy spoke about 42 BDCs. Trust me, if we line all 42 BIDEX now, they never even agree on what their margins should be. She spoke about floor pricing. We gave them a floor pricing. The floor pricing mechanism was introduced to make sure that they are doing a full cost recovery pricing out of the issues, the plethora of issues they raise. For example, FX losses, competition is making them undercut each other. So if you do have a floor pricing mechanism to help you stay straight in cost recovery, and you still go and undercut the floor pricing, then, I mean, you're still doing yourself a disservice. But yes, we agree there are challenges with deregulation. Remember, I mentioned that our most successful stage of deregulation is pricing, but our most challenging is also pricing because it hits the bottom line of everybody. So anyone who can cut the corner to even earn an extra dollar on their business will do that, including adulterating fuel, including illegal imports through ports that are not allowed. People will bring products to the shores of Takoradi, land them on the beach, discharge them into trucks on Takoradi, and then drive them all the way to dump them at filling stations. Now, what they have done is circumvented a tax system in depots. Okay. So there's a certain percentage of the products that is taxed. If you look at the price build-up, there's the taxes, levies, and margins. The taxes and levies are statutory taxes and levies that go into government coffers. And it is accounted for at the depot through GRA, MPA, and da-da-da. So if you skip that process, you're gaining on price. And we created that monster, like I said, with deregulation, because when we were announcing prices, all service providers had to do was to struggle for volumes. Now they've had to improve upon efficiency in pricing as well as volumes. So if you don't build the skill to price efficiently, your colleague is outsmarting you in pricing as well as volumes. You get it? And so people will try and undercut. Then the second question, which is a substantial thing you raised about adulteration and product quality. We do have standards and processes. Now, before a liter of product or a drop of product leaves the depots, there are processes that they go through. It must be marked. Besides being marked, the vehicle tracking system would look at the integrity of the truck and also seal the trucks. It's called the electronic cargo tracking system. These trucks are sealed in the presence of three parties. Okay. The driver, the oil marketing company that has ordered the products from the BDC, and the BDC representative. You all sign off to see that you have seen that the truck has been sealed. You all signed off to see that you have seen that the fuel marker has been dropped into the fuel. Okay, so it is expected that you signed off on integrity of the product. The challenge could be with the movement. Now, with the movement, we're all tracking the movement of the truck until it gets to the filling station. When the product gets to the filling station, the station representatives, which is an employee of the OMC, is at liberty to confirm the quantity before they receive delivery.
And the quality?
Well, because they're carrying the quality certificate of the product.
Right, yeah.
you're carrying the quality certificate of the products. Remember I mentioned earlier that quality for us does not end at just import or production. When the product goes into the marketing tanks, before it leaves the marketing tanks into the truck, every marketing tank is also certified. We actually stepped up our quality services. So every day you must show that the marketing tank meets the national specifications before you are allowed to even sell out of the tank. These are regulatory steps that have been put in place. The final end is the filling station. There are automatic tank gauging systems that help you monitor the inflows and outflows of every underground storage tank at the filling station. So remember I mentioned earlier that we're able to detect water in underground storage tanks. We did that remotely by just sitting in our offices and checking the tanks of every filling station. We're able to tell remotely, somehow, a rough idea what the quality is and what the quantity is. These are foolproof processes we've put in place that we expect every service provider to abide by. There will be slips here and there. Even with the slips, there are punishments for whoever has slipped. So there's a National Oil Loss Control Manual that assigns responsibility to every player along the chain wherever product is lost. So it's pretty much just complying with the processes, complying with the procedures that are in place. When the regulator comes, the regulator has a checklist of procedures, okay, that they are looking to cross off. If one does not tick off, you are aware of the penalty that goes with that particular checklist that hasn't ticked off. It's the same. So it's the same standard that's applicable to everybody, but everybody has different complaints based on their own processes.
Okay, thank you very much. I saw you shaking the head.
Definitely shaking my head.
Yeah.
So just so we're on the same page, you know, when my regulator keeps saying full cost recovery, it really needs to be well defined, because that full cost recovery you're talking about is nowhere near the floor pricing that we're talking about. Full cost recovery, when you're buying something, there's the Platts price plus your premium that the buyer, your seller has put on, and then your landed costs. Right. So the logistics, everything to get your vessel here to discharge into tank. Let's say Platts is 100. Let's say your buyer's premium is 20, and your landed cost is 30. That's 150. Yeah. If the floor price, the price below which Bidex cannot sell, is the 100 plus the 20 plus the 30, then we're talking of full cost recovery. Remember, I haven't mentioned margins here. However, if you're setting a floor price, which is the 100 plus only the 30 landed costs, the 20, that is actually a cost. It's part of the price that the buyer has put on. It's not part of it. Then that's not full cost recovery. And so I think it's important, and I know because we've had meetings with yourselves, so I know the rationale behind why it's difficult to put the premium in, because we all buy from different suppliers. Somebody can buy gasoline at Platts plus 20. The same window, somebody's buying it at Platts plus 60. So what do you use? An average. If you use an average, then the person who's buying at plus 20 will be making more. And so what we then said is, if you're not able to determine that, then just leave the floor pricing alone. Because unfortunately and psychologically, when people see that's the floor price, no form of education can get my clients, the OMCs, to also agree, oh, it's true, your premium isn't part of it, so it's not your full price. Immediately, that becomes a standard. So any OMC coming to you says, oh, this is the floor price. They think the floor price is your basic standard, and so they want to go lower. And that is fundamental, and that's a discussion that we need to have with MPA again, and we actually intend to do that. Because the Bidex have had a meeting, we had a board meeting yesterday, and we're going to come back officially to MPA to engage again. At least the good thing is that this was implemented, I believe, in May, thereabouts. We've had about 3 months to take, in April, right? Wow. We've had about 3 months to, see it play in action. It's not working. And so we'll come back to you with facts and figures, and then we take it from there. So that's what full cost recovery is, not just the half one.
That's my last thing. Okay, yeah, so okay. It's fine.
It's fine,
it's fine. But I'm just saying we're willing to engage. The rationale, she's accepted, we all accepted the rationale. The rationale for us is that if we start getting into the space of regulating margins, like Riverson said earlier, we're going back to regulation. Okay. We're going back to announcing prices, but I'll leave it because we would engage.
Yeah, you engage. Yeah,
so I think...
No, I'm not giving you that.
I don't know about you, but I have received a letter from NPA, or I have a discussion with NPA that I think next week or so we're going to have a meeting to discuss the impact.
Yeah, that's fine.
So,
we haven't received it, but that's okay. You see, I like correcting things when it's put out in the public space. You said you're not in the business of regulating margins. Keyword, margin. We're not talking margins here. Remember, even when I was talking about the full cost recovery, I talked only about the cost component. Nobody's asking you to regulate margins. We will never do that. So let's just be clear. When we're talking of the full cost recovery, we're not including any margin component there. So it's not about regulating margins.
Thank you very much. The moderator is here. Now, another topic. Yes, becoming very clear. Another area. Interestingly, now Ghana's quality of fuel we have, particularly the petroleum, particularly gasoline or diesel, is like what we have in Europe. 50 ppm, parts per million. And when your thermal oil refinery was around 1,000 ppm. And then West Africa, we have Nigeria and others talking about 5,000 to 3,000 ppm. And then we're introducing it, and one of the key people who was against it, hey, take your time. You may collapse our industry. Or the midstream or thermal oil refinery. Because if they are, let's give them a bit of time, say from that time, Temas was around 1,000 or total, around 1,000 or something like that. So let's come down, say, to 500 gradually. Do you see? Yes. Excuse me, if somebody who's developed come and tell nice stories, because you can what you call breathe in fresh air, no kind of thing. Ghana, the death or the pollution of air is not only come from oil, but also from even the road, the dust. So let's take our time. So they went ahead. What happened? Now thermal oil refinery is no more. And then another, the host the Centrio is under really going by it. You see? So now you want to now bring back thermal oil refinery. Are you going to ask them to what? Go by the 50 ppm? Then how are we also monitoring those ones, whether secretly or something somehow, coming from our neighboring, our big neighbor, West African neighbor?
I think for answers to that and more, let's follow on the audience. So, Mr. Moderator, we have 5 minutes to wrap up and then.
Oh, you come there, yes, that's it, to come there. Thank you very much. I like talking, so if you don't stop me, so good. He knows. So, yeah. Okay, yeah. So.
Okay, Doc. So obviously, these are the new national specifications. These are the new standards. Sulfur content in the country is 50 parts per million. Yeah. We gave some timelines to the local refineries to transition. TOR also had that same timeline, but unfortunately, TOR isn't working now. Yeah. In my opinion, if you are going to look for a strategic investor for TOR, you must be forward-looking. Yeah, okay. You must meet what the current market standards are. Otherwise, you won't be competitive. Even at the time that we gave TOR the concession, it was because while TOR exists, we also had to make sure they continue to produce. With that, we established a price parity mechanism. So the price at which TOR was selling products is supposed to be cheaper than the price at which the BDCs were importing and selling. And we created a differential that was supposed to be collected and used to, help revamping TOR. I'm not sure Ivy was very happy about that, but we still pushed to get. You did like, okay, well, but not every BDC liked it because, you're paying higher and then TOR is paying low. Fortunately, the quantity that TOR put on the market was quite low, and so the BDC imports absorbed it, and the ultimate quality at the pump was actually around 30 parts per million, because the imports were about 10 parts per million. You blended it with TOR's 800 to 500 based on volume. You got like 30. So we still met our national standards of 50. But forward looking with TOR, you must go all out with a strategic investor. It is not a sentimental attachment to TOR. You must make money out of TOR. Otherwise, we'll keep having the challenges we're having. So if we have the opportunity to discuss a strategic investor with TOR, it must be what the market needs, in my opinion.
So, Reverend, how now, TOR or the local market, how can we make it profitable or sustainable?
Yeah, I mean, so your sustainable is not the
Environment.
it's environmental.
We'll come there.
So you know, TOR can make it. It started in my heart that TOR is not working, you know. And for those who have been in the sector for a long time, you understand that TOR went down exactly when Ghana started to produce crude oil. Today, we see the impact of Ghana Gas's LPG. We could have the same set of scenario with TOR, where TOR could refine crude oil produced in-house, I mean, in the country, to meet the demand. Because is there demand? Yes, there's a demand. Is it possible for TOR to work again? It's possible. Why can't we semi-privatize TOR? I mean, let's sell some shares of TOR to investors who will gladly pick it up and maintain it. Because it's not a dead goat as I hear people talk about it. And for me, I think in 2017 or 18, I was very sad. I was not in Ghana by then, but then I was very sad when I heard that TOR was going to turn to a tank farm. And that's what it is today. Because we've not leveraged on the full operationality of TOR, but we are happy singing songs to support other private entities, like other refineries, when our own is not working. So maybe I'll not have the chance to talk again, but let me give my final remarks. Because I know when you take the mic, and that's closing remarks for you. So I believe we are going into an era where new policies and to address emerging issues would have to come forward. We are here and we heard what Nigeria is doing. The president last 2 months has declared that all their private cars will be on CNG, you know. And Sheila and I, when we work on the Ghana Energy Transition Energy Plan and Framework, one of the things that we saw that was very similar to the global outlook was the downstream emitting so much, to almost 50%, all right, out of the rest of the emissions. So that's what the gas is here to do. Basically, the EVs are also setting in. Last week, there's a conference here, Ghana ERA, talking about the electric vehicles. And one of the questions that they put to me was, what is the downstream now doing to accommodate the EVs? Because whether you like it or not, it's a market. And consumer will determine what it wants, not you, the supplier. But again, the supply and demand will also play a very big role because people will buy into it with two things in their mind. Is there electricity sustainability? And is there a place that I can charge my battery, you know? So we need to look at the holistic industry. And I'm very happy that my sister mentioned about the number of OMCs we have, you know? I think probably need to go into an era where we talk about collaboration or of putting some of them together. When you have 20%, do 80% of the volumes, and the rest 80% could be looked at. And these are all regulatory matters, you know? Thank you.
Okay, now, the floor is open to our contributors to make their contribution or remarks.
Mr. Philip Tieko is the Managing Director of Star Oil.
Thank you. So listen to all that. Your opinion. What do you say? Your take, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Moderator. So, like the panelists said, I would like to, first of all, congratulate the NPA. We've come a long way as an industry, no doubt. 20 years ago, the industry was heavily dominated by multinationals, you know, in the downstream. Today, nearly maybe 70% of the industry is controlled by local OMCs. So in terms of local content, even though they intend to go even further with it, at this point, locals control about 70% of the business in the downstream. It's a credit to the current regulatory regime we have. However, the panelists have also identified some of the problems with licensing, for example. It's good that locals control 70% of the industry, but it appears that the licensing regime we've had over the years have not really helped the majority of local players in the industry. Why do I say this? Currently, the MPA requirement for a license is, I think, 7 stations. You can even borrow the stations and get a license. This has led to the number of filling station OMCs that we have in the market. There's nothing wrong with giving licenses for people to start at a certain level. But I think if we want quality local players with the right governance systems and structures, that would help the NPA do the kind of things that they want around fuel quality, preventing illegal trucks from dumping products in filling stations. You need a certain level of quality governance at the OMC level. And I would encourage the NPA to look critically at this. If you give a license to someone, you should have a condition that by 5 years, you should be of a certain size and scale. If you can't, you need to partner with another local player so that we can own this industry and have bigger size local players with the right governance systems and structures. If you have that in place, a lot of these issues we are talking about will not even exist at all. Putting in a price floor was only, for me, patching the problem. The real reason why we have this situation is because MPA allows filling stations to be built just anywhere in this country. Today, if I submitted a license application to the MPA for a station to be built in my hometown, where there are just maybe 5 cars on the road, they will check, is it 300 meters away from another filling station? No. It's 1,000 meters. Okay, good. EPA, fine. Fire, fine. You get a license, you build a filling station. The MPA has all the data to be able to tell that this location is not economically viable. And yet, you will get a license, and unknown to you, maybe for some reason you live abroad, you don't know the market, you build a filling station, your capital is locked up. The MPA could have prevented you from that by telling you that based on the industry numbers, this area, we do not at this point consider it economically viable for a filling station to be built. And that would have spared so many locals unnecessary investment in filling stations that today are idle. As we speak, so many people have been deceived into building stations in locations that will never, ever sell more than 30,000 liters, even if you sell it at 1 cedi, because there's just no market for it. So, please, the MPA should use its licensing powers and data available in terms of economic activity, vehicular traffic, etc., to be able to factor this viability into filling station construction or licensing, and then use the same power to help consolidate the bottom 30% or so. Because without that, all your governance structures you're expecting to be in place will never be in place. If I own a 7-station filling station, most of which I borrowed, I'm running it like my private pocket business. How am I going to put in corporate governance structures that will deliver the kind of quality that you're expecting? So please, licensing for me is the major problem we have in this industry. If you deal with licensing, you deal with all these pricing issues. I have seen even today, our colleague OMCs that are selling openly below the price floor. It's not even the BDCs who are undercutting each other. Openly. Today, if you drive through the streets of Ghana, you will see OMCs that are violating the price floor. Right? The MPA, when it introduced this, I was against it, and I knew that it was not going to be enforced. And once it's not enforced, it was always going to be big players' hands tied behind them. Everybody else can do whatever they want. Is this the kind of regulatory regime we want? No. Let's do the right thing. Let's get proper institutions to be in the downstream and get these problems that the MPA is patching to be resolved naturally by competent, well-governed institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. maybe I will say, oh, hey, I'm going to invest by faith and not by economics. We'll come to that. Okay, the next is Madam Sarah Podu. You know, fine. So now, the floor is open.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
because the first panel couldn't have a lot of engagement from the audience, we would like to take 5 at a go,
Yes.
direct them to the panel, and then we shall revert.
Okay.
So please, let it be short, let it be straight to the point. You can direct them to any of the panelists, and they'll be glad to answer. Let's start. Would you want to? I don't want to be biased, so please let him choose, and then I'll just...
Oh, so you have the yes, sir. That is given to you.
So, in the spirit of fairness, we shall take 2 from here, and another 2 from here. With gender as the main consideration. Please receive it.
I'll vote by faith.
Okay, thank you very much. So my question will go to Dr. Sheila Addo. And this is against the background of what the CEO of the Association of OMC said. I would like to borrow the words of Mr. Tieko. What prevents us to look at the minimum margin in the price floor? Because, as you mentioned, margins are not going up. But then, prices in a year, you can have prices go up so many times, but the margin stays the same. So that means that the dealer would need more working capital. And with the same margin, he will not be able to raise that working capital to be able to do the business. Very soon, dealers will not be able to do the business again. And if they are wiped out, then the risk falls onto the OMC. If we come to the OMC too, and the OMCs also are not able to get good margins, and they go to the banker says that your margins cannot help you to repay your loans, so we can also not facilitate you. Then the retailers are also going down. Then, talking about sustainability, we are now going down instead of going up. So why can't we look at that part of the minimum margin in this floor? Because with climate issues and electric vehicles all coming in, there is no more time. And so how fast can we do this? If you have to go to Parliament, why can't we do that? Thank you.
All right. Next. Any on this row? Okay.
Okay, good afternoon to you all. My name is Owusu Apia from Crusaders of Change for Environmental Health and Safety. Please, my question is a general question for all Ghanaians, especially those out there complaining that every day fuel prices is going up, whilst we are, we take oil from here. So my question is that when you go to other countries like Saudi Arabia and those oil-producing countries, at least the citizens are benefiting out of it because, in terms of its price. So with this, I'm asking, can the NPA do something about this fuel increment issue so that at the end of the day, each and ordinary Ghanaian can benefit the oil we are taking from, in Ghana here? And secondly, another question is about the LPG. Today, we are losing so much on, our forest issues because of charcoal sellers or because of charcoal. So, if the prices of LPG come down, at the end of the day, it will affect those people who are doing this charcoal issue. So, I'm begging the NPA to reduce some of this things so that at least it will benefit all of us, because climate change issue is taking over this country and it is not helping all of us. Thank you so much.
Let me move to the middle row. The middle row. Okay.
My name is Fred from MyCell Energy. And my question is to my CEO, that is Madam Ivy and then Lady Sheila. I don't know what is wrong with us as BDCs. I don't know if we would ever think right, because price floor for AGO is 11.23, in case my memory serves me right, and that of PMS is about either 10.6 something, or either 10.66. The question is, if in the mind of the regulator, without recourse to your BDC margin and your supplier's margin, which you and I would term as not full cost, we as BDCs are still selling below that price. What is wrong with us? What are we asking the regulator to do? But what we must all bear in mind is that someone within this chain is paying the cost. Either the banks are paying the cost, or some BDCs will go down. And all of us know some BDCs have already gone down. I don't know how long we'll continue to do this. So this issue of running away from, oh, we are deregulated, the regulator must not come in. It is the duty of the regulator to ensure that we are sustained. Thank you. I don't want to continue.
Thank you. A wise man knows his limits. The middle row. Okay, then we'll go to the last row here.
Thank you. My name is Edward Nunu from the Institute for Oil and Gas Studies, University of Cape Coast. My question is addressed to NPA. In the face of energy transition and the adoption of electric vehicles, may I know if NPA has a policy towards stranded assets, oil and gas stranded assets? And then the last one is about the fact that Madam Ivy mentioned that sometimes they monitor and they find traces of water in the tanks. Where is this water coming from? Thank you.
The last one, and then we'll revert. Okay.
Okay. My name is Ebenezer. I'm from CBOD. My question goes to Sheila and then that of Dr. Riverson. Considering the number of OMCs we have, as we've all indicated that the number of OMCs we have, are becoming a challenge, I want to know whether you would recommend to the NPA that we should place a cap on the number of OMCs that should be licensed to operate in Ghana. Would you recommend that to the NPA? And would it be something that the NPA will want to take up to ensure that the number of OMCs that we have been limited? Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, your panelists have 10 minutes to respond, and then we shall take the last three.
Okay, the floor, panelist. Yeah. I think should I have a number of director that you?
Okay, so I'll start in response to Mr. Teku's comment. So, we have our regulatory mandate and our philosophy is to, as much as possible, stay away from the business conversations that go on in between PSPs. I've forgotten the terminology we use for it. But we try to stay away from business operations. But like I said, deregulation has put us in a different state altogether. And we are very, very happy to look at the viability of your business in a certain area before allowing you to build a station or not. The issue is that we do have the regulatory process, and we're amending our act. Currently, if you meet the various licensing conditions, we're supposed to give you the license. We will start introducing some sort of discretionary measures, especially because our industry has come of age, to be able to look at these things. So yes, in the future, those are some of the things we'll look at. What we are hoping not to get is some of the OMCs coming at us, because usually you will take a decision not to issue out a license. You get a call, plea from OMCs, to come and insist, to issue out the license. But yes, it's a very good suggestion. We're very happy to take it on board. Look at the viability and insist that no, we cannot allow you. We left that as part of your business decision. And so, before you even get a license, you submit a business plan. We expect that you have done your own feasibility, you've done your own feasibility analysis to make sure that you're profitable in that area that you're establishing business. But if you want us to get into that, then we're babysitting you and actually controlling you. But we're all too happy to do that going into the future. So it's something we'll consider. Somebody asked whether we can regulate margins. It's still the same conversation about defeating the purpose of deregulation. Once we deregulate, because that's the only, so once we deregulated, the only variable aspect in the price are the exchange rates and the margins that are applicable to the various service providers. Now, exchange rates, somehow through the FX auctions, it's kind of being controlled. Then we go into establishing your margins for you. We sort of defeat the purpose of deregulation, but we hear you. Like I said, our industry has come full circle from 2005. We're not a baby industry. We have several service providers whose needs we need to start rationalizing and changing focus. So we are changing even our acts to give us more power, more impetus to do a few of these things. What we hope wouldn't happen is when we start getting into your face with tougher regulations, you're not coming back resistant. But as usual, we do stakeholder dialogues. So that's also something to note, because we've heard that too many times. Regulate margins, regulate margins. I don't know what else I'll say about it again. We'll take it back and then look at it. Then I think there are two more questions for me. The other one is, what our policy in terms of stranding of assets are? I wouldn't say we do have like just one policy. We have several policies that we're developing to try and transition our industry in terms of what is happening with energy transition. Dr. Riverson mentioned that there are electric vehicle charging point opportunities that are coming up. We're looking at having conversations with Energy Commission, who are the owners of those standards, to try and see whether there can be some provision at filling stations to have electric vehicle charge points. In fact, there's one Total filling station somewhere in Accra that has an electric vehicle charge point. So that's one low-hanging fruit we're looking at. We're looking at compressed natural gas, incorporation of compressed natural gas in our industry as another low-hanging fruit. Incorporation of biofuels as another low-hanging fruit. So it's a systemic approach to see how we transition our infrastructure, how we retool. So there's a National Biofuel Committee that is looking at how we set up the framework for biofuels and biofuel blends in the country. We recognize that the storage facilities, the pipeline facilities, perhaps the trucks, might not be correctly tooled to carry biofuels because there might be a lot of evaporation and all that. There's a feasibility study currently ongoing to see how we repurpose some of this, probably at least cost, and we transition gradually. So yes, there's a lot of efforts to make sure we don't have stranded assets in the petroleum downstream. Then there's a final one for you as well. How do we have water in underground storage tanks? I'm not an engineer, I'm not a chemist, but the simple basic thing I've learned is sometimes these tanks are leaking. And the water table beneath it might be quite high, water could seep into it. There could be flooding in that area, water could seep into an opening in it. But the very good thing is that the operational requirement of every filling station is that every single day you check for water in your underground storage tanks. Prior to introduction of technology, people would actually do a physical dipping. But now with the introduction of our technology, you can sit remotely and see the level of fuel and also see the level of water. Once we also see it, we caution you, you pump it out, and then you take corrective measures. So there are so many ways that we're cleaning these issues. It's not necessarily a problem, but these are some of the operational issues that come with operating a filling station.
Some of the questions that have come relate to the economics of the industry. And this is a true story. One elderly person was led to put up a huge filling station after his friend also had put up a filling station elsewhere. After 1 month of operation, he sent a message to the manager of the filling station to withdraw a huge amount from the station, supposedly being the profit that he believed he has earned during that period. And the manager told him the volume that was sold, the margin that was earned, and all that, it was not possible to withdraw that amount of money from the station or to take that amount of money. And he was so upset. He said, what? After he has spent so much money to put up this infrastructure, he couldn't take even a few thousands of cedis? What is the meaning of this? He felt very furious. What I'm saying is that we don't have the culture of being analytical when we are taking investment decisions in this country. We do it on sentimental basis. And we are led by many irrational factors in taking decisions as investing huge amounts of money after which we now are trying to find ways to recover that amount of money, leading to all kinds of illicit practices. I think that we need to evolve. We need to become more analytical. We need to base our decisions more on information. And I want to urge the investing public, the business community, the regulator, to come up with a system which will inform operators about how existing players are even faring before new ones are applying for licenses and so on. We have an issue. I believe that these are conversations that we need to have going forward. Thank you.
I think one question came to me, but I'll comment quickly on the Saudi Arabia thing. I was with one of the directors of Saudi Arabia in Norway last week. And when I mentioned to him that we have 245 OMCs in this country, he was shocked. The guy was like, what? What's the population? We are more than, I don't know. I mean, at least, even our OMCs in Ghana is more than the OMCs in Nigeria, as of today. You know, so the man was shocked. Like, you see, he was so red. Because to him, it's impossible. But now you mentioned them giving good prices to their citizens. It's true. He mentioned to me, because we were comparing the price in Norway against what is sold how it's sold in Saudi Arabia. And a liter is below 50 cents in Saudi Arabia, you know. Because it's a country that understands the importance of the full value chain of the oil and gas industry, all right? So before Saudi Arabia will export any crude oil, they make sure that their local demand is met before they export, you know. So I don't know what stops Ghana from refining its crude oil. I remember very well when I was with Ghana Gas, and LPG prices were going up. We were called by MPA to give a discount. Remember, Abbas? We were called to give a discount to bring the LPG price down. Why could we do that? We could do that because we are producing that locally, with local manpower. You understand? So if you are producing something locally, you control the prices. You don't now use the international benchmark. You can use that, but then it doesn't actually dictate for you what your profit margins will be. So what Ghana has failed to do is because we have not taken full control of the entire value chain, which is more profitable than just selling the crude oil. Now, we make money from the crude oil sales, no doubt, and that's why the PRMA is set to regulate the usage of the returns or the revenue made from crude oil sales. The last time I checked, to my surprise, any petroleum economist here will understand that is very, very, warning. To have more than 50% of your budget coming from crude oil sales is warranting. Countries collapse when there's a turmoil, when oil price go down, and therefore you cannot support your budget. We were here in 2020 when the Minister of Finance was called back to Parliament because of a turmoil in crude oil prices, because of chunk of the revenue expected for the budget support was coming from crude oil sales. For one very funny reason, we don't know what has happened to even the gold sales. We don't know what has happened to the other natural resources that we have, like cocoa. All attention is on oil. Meanwhile, we're producing no more than 200,000 barrels a day. That's the lowest I've even worked it and even understood in the oil and gas industry. But meanwhile, it's a talking point everywhere. Now you mentioned the stranded asset. See, let me be very, very frank with you. Energy transition and net zero will not happen, and none of you will be alive. I'm telling you the gospel truth, you see. And Africa is so far from meeting that whole thing. You know, let's be very frank. I'm not ready to fly a solar plane at night. Come on. No, I won't do that. You see, Africa is talking about energy security. Not transition, man. You know, even in Europe, the narrative has changed from energy transition to energy, net zero, because they know that they cannot face all fossil fuel. I don't see any assets being redundant. But let me tell you the truth. We're going to have EVs set in. If I have money, I'll buy one. If you dash me, I'll use it. But with doing so, how am I going to charge my car? the OMCs are going to be partakers of the EVs because we have the asset. And the asset we have here is the land and the locations that Philip mentioned about. We are ready to turn our filling stations into EVs. Because when you go to the US, it's the same filling station selling diesel that they are charging their cars from. What policy is asking them to stop that asset and then do EVs? Please, we are going to coexist for some time. That time, you and I will not even live to see it. I'm telling you the truth.
Okay.
So there was one question directed at me by my fellow colleague, Bidek, Fred. Fred, you said what's wrong with us. That's what happens when desperation sets in and when people want to survive. People don't think rationally anymore. In a small BDC space where we're 40 plus, obviously our motives will never be aligned. But it's also still very important that we make sure that if we're in a price liberalized market, unless we don't want to be in a price liberalized market, then we're protecting that aspect. Because if today we say it's okay based on the fact that people are undercutting prices, etc., we're okay for NPA to step in and do ABC, what stops NPA the next time from stepping in to do something else? And then at that point in time, will we bring up the arguments that it's price liberalized, you can't come in? If I'm NPA, I'll say, but at this point in time, you're okay for me to come in. But bottom line is that people are trying to survive. And so that's why people are undercutting prices. So yeah, there's a lot wrong with us, but it's because we're in desperation and survival mode. So unfortunately, there's really no scientific answer to that. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we are concluding.
We shall take the last three.
Oh, let me make a comment over here.
Oh, when you are concluding, then you wrap up.
Okay. I might forget something.
Oh, you write it down. I beg you.
Okay.
So we shall take the last three, one from here, and one from there. Oh, I see a hand here. Is there another hand here? Okay, so we'll take two here, and then that one.
Again, my name is Ike Kwote. I'm yet to see an OMC do self-policing of quality. By that I mean he received a bulk at the retail outlet. Do they go out of their way, take samples, and make sure that the quality on the bill of lading is the same as what he's receiving there in the sump? Do they do it? And does MPA enforce that sort of thing? This is to answer the question raised by the moderator about quality assurance, right? I don't think it's being done. But in terms of semantics, I keep on asking, are we deregulating or we are price liberalizing? One thing I found wrong, maybe Sheila can correct me, we saw not ensuring competition between refining and importation. Again, I allude to Central coming on stream. Sooner or later, they will prove a point. I'll be very happy to see a situation where local component of products supply is about 70%, then the import is about 20%. It will solve a lot of these problems.
Thank you. My name is Paul Ofori from COPEC. I saw CBOD and then AOMC fight over margins. One claiming to have negative margins and the other saying that they get less than. I know consistently for the last 2 years, OMCs have been enjoying a little over 75, 80 pesos as margins. And then also CBOD, sometimes 1 CD, sometimes, 0.89 or 99 pesos. That's per our calculations, by the way. And so that's fine, we are entitled to it. That notwithstanding, I just want to ask that, Sheila, how often does the regulator recommend to government? Because we know that taxes and levies, it's a little above 3 cedis, both on gasoline and gas oil. So how often does the regulator recommend to government to consider perhaps suspending some of the levies, or better yet, taking a critical look at some of the taxes and levies that to some of us are nuisance? All right, sanitation and pollution levy, for instance. I mean, come on. Aside that, TOR. I mean, the viability of TOR is not in doubt. Over the years, we know how profitable TOR has been and can be. I think that it must be a deliberate decision on the part of government to say that we are going to resource TOR. Yes, it is difficult pulling the hair from your nose, but that is the bitter pill we have to swallow as a nation. We need to pool all the resources that we can and then make sure TOR comes back on stream. That way, it reduces the huge volumes of forex that we will need to import finished petroleum products with. And so I am pleading with all of us and all policymakers to push government in making sure that it puts all the resources it needs in making TOR works. Thank you.
Thank you. Last one here and then here.
Thank you. Dr. Andrew Boy from Nationwide Technologies Limited. Mine is more of a contribution on something I heard from Dr. Riverson, and it's two issues really. The issue of sustainability. It's not just purely economics, but there's a real viable environmental aspect to it. We have an industry that is really highly focused on the margins, the costs. It's an important element, but really the environmental side cannot also be overlooked. I think 2 years ago I made a contribution about leveraging on innovative products to additivate fuel that we use in this country. Why do I say you can also address the environmental issues? We have about 28,000 people die annually from polluted diseases. I think that's something that should focus our minds and as well addressing. The issue of margins is important, but I don't think we are leveraging enough on innovative products. So NTL, we have a fuel additive that's been in the market for the last couple of years. It has helped immensely those we've worked with. So what does it do? It reduces the cost of fuel in real terms. So by just making an additional price, by paying a small amount on top of the base price of fuel, you're saving inherently more through less use of fuel, better improvement in the vehicle performance, reduced cost in maintenance, as well as reduction, significant reduction in all those pollutions that you witness on our roads. We have worked with some OMCs, and despite the additional cost of the product, they've seen significant improvements in the amount of fuel they sell at the pump. So I will entreat us all to look at how we can leverage technology to improve on the fuels that we are using. Because yes, indeed, fuel, the preeminence of fossil fuels, yes, it might not happen in our lifetime, but it's sure going to happen. And I think we really do need to stay focused on that. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Last one. I saw a hand here. In the absence of any further questions, Mr. Moderator, your panelists will wrap up in 10.
Okay. Thank you very much because of time. What I would say is that a point of, I would say, correction. When we say net zero, the world is not saying zero emissions. In fact, I'm part of the climate change negotiation, you're part of the Ghana government.
Mr. Moderator, you are being a justice in your own cause. Let the panelists answer the questions. Then when you are wrapping up, then you wrap up. Time, I beg you.
Okay.
Let them speak to the questions that have been thrown to them.
Yeah, so I think very quick, because time is the essence now. OMC is checking the quality before receiving it. Yes, the man that asked the question is no more here. Okay, then I won't even answer it. Yes, nationwide technology. You see, I'm an academia. When I say something, I speak on authority. Okay, I have written papers on what I'm talking about. Right. I'm standing on the point of the understanding I have the industry and what the content I'm working from. And I set the basis of the understanding that we don't want fuel to be adulterated. And I don't think that's what we're talking about, okay? I'm now comparing the energy sustainability that's been defined for us and against what we should define our energy sustainability to be. And therefore, I brought out these 3 A's. So before energy to be sustainable, for me, passing all environmental justification should be, first of all, available, accessible, and affordable, okay? So if that source of energy is not available, how can you even buy it? At what price? If it's available, accessible, but not affordable, we're not solving the energy security issue based on which I said what I said, okay? So I'm not different on what pollution and what not should not be. Yeah, your technology, I've heard about it. Some of my members have mentioned that they buy from you. It's fantastic, okay? But I'm not saying that to avoid them buying from you, okay? That's a good marketing strategy anyway. Good one.
So there was something about how often we advise government on taxes. So we do a review of our prices every 2 weeks. Even though we've deregulated prices and we don't announce, we still monitor the components that build up to the price build-up. And every time that we think we can make a case on any variation, whether it is taxes, levies, or even the application of the price in a certain manner, we do make those recommendations to government. But, I mean, government would also look at the bigger picture in terms of the economy and how what hurts and how what benefits them to be able to give us some feedback. We've had some gains. Like I mentioned, we pegged premix subsidy at 50%. Prior to that, it was 100% subsidy on premix fuel. And it became challenging to pay. Even though we had made provisions in the price stabilization and recovery levy to collect monies to pay for subsidies, it was not adequate to pay for the premix subsidies as prices kept increasing. We made a case, premix subsidies was reduced by 50%. We've had some reprieves here and there on taxes. At some point in time, we had some ad valorem tax on the price, the VAT, but we changed it to a fixed term tax. So yes, we do make those recommendations regularly, but we get feedback in the bigger scheme of things. We're not the only sector in the economy, but yes, these analyses are conducted every now and then.
Thank you very much. Okay, I should go ahead. Okay, yes. Let me continue. The energy, you see, they are not saying zero.
Mr. Moderator, have all the questions been exhausted?
Yes, they have been exhausted.
Okay, so.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Whether you like it or not, I'll talk. Okay, you see, the world is not saying zero carbon. It's net. Net what means that the producer, like for example, human beings, when you breathe, what do you breathe in? When you breathe out what? Carbon dioxide. When you breathe in what? Oxygen. What naturally, what takes in the carbon dioxide? Trees, plants. So, if you are still going to use your coal, oil, then you can plant what? Trees, equivalent, the number for station, to capture it. You become in the end get what? Zero. That is what we call net zero. Do you see? Otherwise, we have to also kill ourselves. So then the next is that the world under the Article 6, or Article 2 and 4 of the Paris Agreement, they are not saying everybody total transition. It's African countries, developing countries. Take your time so that you also don't risk your economy. By the time, look at it. All what it means, Europe, they are not using charcoal. They are using gas and electric for cooking. We are still using charcoal. So whether we like it or not, these are always going to be with us, but only in terms of proportion that will reduce. Secondly, you see, we have been told, gotten the impression that oil and gas, coal are only for what? Energy. But we have what? Petrochemicals. In that the chair you are sitting on, the plastics are all from what? Oil and gas. The bottles you are drinking from all that. So the thing is that we also have to think of what? Diversifying. If we say not energy, using it to what? Run an industry to expand. That's what they're also doing. So they'll tell you they are not using coal, but they are using coal for everything, industries. Are you getting this? That's the wisdom I keep saying to have. You see? But we are influenced by so many groups, the NGOs and all those things. Mind you, when our economy collapses, we become what? Always a buyer to somebody else. And then all the time you buy. You see? And that's the problem we have also, like I'm saying, with the oilness. If you tour and others, or local, you have local production, far exceeding what we are exporting. Then what happens? We save, we don't have that challenge on our currency, the forest, and also we will save it. But we have virtually nothing producing. You rather produce your crude oil set very cheap, and then go and buy the products at a higher cost. So, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to explain that. If you want more, yes, so that's what I'll come. Fine. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, a resounding round of applause for our able moderator and his panelists. Prof, if you were my teacher, trust me, I would not read any notes. I would just remember all the stories you tell in class. Seriously, please, a round of applause for them once again. A group photograph, and then we shall call it a day. Ladies and gentlemen, has this been beneficial? Or has today been impactful, insightful, illuminating? Then please give a round of applause once again to the MPA and all their collaborators. On behalf of the MPA and all their partners, we'd like to say a big thank you for your attendance today and for sticking and staying. It's hard to get people after lunch, but you've endured it. You've been with us. We want to thank you ever so much. Tomorrow we continue with the same enthusiasm, the same vein. At 9 o'clock prompt, we shall begin day 2. We ask that you come in early, take your seats, and then give us the inspiration to start on a good note. Because we've made it thus far, I beg us all to just take one group photograph and then we'll be out of here. Is that okay? So please, as many as can, let's come on stage. Let's take one big photo together and then we'll call it a day. Prof, you do all. Prof, you do all. Thank you. As many as can, please come up. Let's take one group photograph and then we'll be out of here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all come up, please. Thank you very much. As many as can, please join us up here.